Welcome back to the channel. All right, it's time for the next video in the series of the best top 10s of each class in the 2024. Then now we're going to go over 2023, and then we will be doing the best 30, the top 30 in the whole game. Stick with us for the whole month. We do this every June, every December, and this is all based off the monthly tier list I've been doing for about 4 years now. What you're looking at right here, this was compiled. Thank you so much, Agatron, Aiden. We've included my Discord server's rankings every single year when we do this, every single June, every single December. And this year, I'm just very, very pressed for time. And Aiden went ahead, volunteered, did the whole thing, tabulated it all. And so that's exactly what you're looking at. Now, I'm going to go over this just a little bit, have a little fun, talk about it, and then we'll cut to the video explaining the whole scoring system, all the detail. When I talk about it takes us hours to rate all these champions, do the whole thing every single month. That way you can understand the terms and how and the why and where we end up with the scores. And if you've already seen all of that, there's a timestamp in the description. You can go directly to what will be mine, MCoC Illuminati's top 10 champions of the year 2023 as we look back. Now, all right, let's jump into this very quickly. And remember, if you've already seen how this format works, go ahead and just jump to the timestamp that I've listed in the description. You can get right to the rankings. Now, this is how we've broken down every single champion, rated them. This is when I talk about the thoroughness, the hours, the debating, going back and forth. It is a lot of fun, but this is how we do it. And then this is how they're all scored. And every month that is presented in the general tier list. We've been doing this for, I think, 4 years now. So let's go over this. And this is how they're going to be listed now. There are four categories. They're not equally weighted, but there are 4 general categories. There's ease of use, Battlegrounds, War, and General. And then General is an added up score of those other 4 categories. And we'll talk about them when we get to them. Ease of use, this is worth about 3 points. This is the epitome of it, is Sunspot. I know often we think of like our parry heavy champions, like an Archangel being the easiest to use. And I'm not saying they're not, but we are including champions like Sunspot, phenomenal champion, not a knock on him. And in fact, I know many players like the spreadsheet because they can configure it for ease of use, even though I always present it every month without ease of use. For the sake of these rankings here in June, we will be including ease of use. Moving on to Battlegrounds, this is worth 10 points. And you see my Battlegrounds rankings every single month. We've been doing that since before Battlegrounds even came out. We're now adding even the scores so you can see them. Photon is a 10 out of 10 in the dual threat category. She's a very good defender, a menacing defender. There are some very good counters for her, though. If you pull Photon, someone pulls a Mantis, you throw her on attack, and there's a lot of meta defenders that she is very, very good for. So she's the perfect example of a 10 out of 10 in Battlegrounds. Moving on to War. War is in an interesting place, and I won't take too much time for this, for that discussion in this. But in War, the relevance really there was outside of sagas, outside of metas and these sorts of things, attacker tactic, defender tactics. Who are the champions? Who are the few champions that when you're in tier 1, you're 2, you're really pushing, I don't know, tier 3. Who are the champions that are almost always someone you're looking to assign? Yes, there's going to be times in metas and defenders, things like that, can X them out. But some champions just flat are more usable than others in War, and Tiger is definitely the 10 out of 10, at least for now, in War. That's an example of that. Now, moving on to General, you have a total score of 15. This is the biggest because I know not everyone does War, I know not everyone does Battlegrounds, but everyone plays the game. And this is broken down into long form. You can get up to 3 points for this. This is the most heavily weighted on Necropolis. We've had like all the various of Legends content, and of course Grandmaster's Gauntlet, and then now there's the EOP and things like that. All of them are going to be presenting different challenges, defenders, node sets, trap nodes, and those sorts of things. And then of course, like in EOP, there's even our hashtag objectives and things like that. But there are champions that we can say, especially looking at Necropolis, just appear to be better in long form than others. You think of your Kate Bishop, Wong, Aegon, Shuri, those sorts of things. Champions have all been rated across there for their ability to ramp up and then maintain that ramp. You think of like Dani Moonstar, she can do massive damage after a ramp, but it starts all over. Very rarely you're going to be using her for your long form, maybe an EOP sort of thing. Probably not in the Necropolis or the next version of Necropolis when it comes out. Moving on to Flow. Spider-Ham is the epitome of this. In fact, it's when I came up with the term flows, when I first covered him years ago when he came into the game. I'm going to read it to you. How well do a champion's abilities and specials fit together? How easily does a node or a defender or an AI throw off the attacker? How relevant is that in today's game? Example is Spider-Ham is a 5 out of 5. I literally came up with this term and this definition because it is different than ease of use. With Spider-Ham, you need a power sting, he's got it. He can apply them without even needing power. You need a taunt, he's got one for you. You need an evade, it's available. All of his specials do something, they help him out. You land the heavy to keep his spider nonsense high. You gotta play him well. I don't have him as a 3 out of 3 ease of play. He's high though. But it's his flow, in my opinion, his flow and his budget and his meta that make him so incredibly powerful. Moving on to budget. This is also worth 5 points. How many relevant abilities and immunities are in the champion's kit? Utility brought to a fight, and also damage is part of this. So yes, you may not have the most utility, but if you got enough damage, you're gonna get at least a decent score of this. Hercules, right? You want him to crit? He can crit. You want big crits? He can do that too. You want to go unblockable? He can do that. Yeah, you got to get close to death, but still, he can do it. He can just do so many things. He has relevant resistances. He's a phenomenal champion. His synergies are great. 5 out of 5 budget. Everything that could be packed into one single champion and still be in this game is there. 5 out of 5 budget. There are a few other 5 out of 5s, but Herc is my favorite example of it. Meta, this is the one that we really need to stay on top of. Really, when we're talking often, if you see me promote or demote a champion, or when I come out a little bit like hesitant or conservative on them when they're new, it's their meta score that's quote unquote holding them back or moving them up, because I'm just not sure how they're going to be used. And then as time shifts on, some champions become better in the meta and some become worse. Like CGR's meta score has actually gone up as late. We've talked about that a lot on this channel. And if you think about Hulkling, I actually talked about on stream today, he came out as a penny counter. But he was so good and across so many ways, and some of it's flow and some of it's budget too, that he's not just for your tech champions. Like if you think about future Ant-Man, he happens to have a Pierce. So a lot of your tech champions who are problematic, Iron Man Infinity War is coming back, well, Hulkling can go unblockable. But he's also then good outside of that. He's got his resistances, or I'm sorry, he's got his immunities and those sorts of things. But Onslaught comes out very problematic defender, no like seemingly hard counters outside of Havoc necessarily, but people were using Hulkling for Onslaught. He's just so meta relevant. This can shift. This is the one that we're always keeping our eye on and why champions get promoted and demoted. Hopefully you have a really good understanding of how the tier list works, the scoring and all of that. This is my Discord server, so this is going to be a little bit different than the MCoC Illuminati. I think it makes sense though, if people are on that server, they enjoy talking with myself and each other and all these things. We're gonna have some like-minded sort of things. All right, and then I just want to say really quick, honorable mention, especially because they won't be showing up on mine, is Iron Man Redesigned, Gladiator, Baron Zemo. Those are honorable mention. You can see their total score is relatively close. I think Zemo's a little far off, but hey, you know, it's Zemo. Let's give him a shout out, even though I got Zemo walled in the Necropolis. Gladiator's a great champion. I covered his buff. I was so pumped up about it. I'm actually struggling to use him. Now, I know other players are doing very well with him, but the AI and in Battlegrounds, there's just something about it I am not enjoying. So I'm a little disappointed. I don't really think that's Gladiator's fault, though, to be clear. I don't think that's the champion or anything like that. I think that's maybe a little bit me and a little bit of the AI. And then, you know, I love Iron Man. I feel like in today's current game, he's about as close as we have to a Nimrod replacement, that sort of thing. And he's just tanky as heck and very, very different in the tech class. Now, I happen to know he'll be showing up when we do the tech top 10s. So we'll talk about him at length when we get there. And then the rest of these champions, I believe we will be seeing. So we'll spend a little more time talking about them in the myself and MCoC Illuminati's 2023 top 10. All right, very quickly, we'll talk about the honorable mentions. The champions that like just were close and just didn't quite make it in. One, we have Cassie Lang. I do think, and we've talked about this and we'll continue to talk about in every single video that we're kind of part of this top 10 series, is I think these champions are very powerful, that are not out as 7 stars. I think they're going to continue to kind of fall down. Hopefully you saw the video explaining the rankings and how we do all of that, and the metric is, I think it's the meta score, right? Obviously, and when we're giving out rank up advice, if you're like, hey, I could take up my 6-star Cassie Lang, or I could take up this 7-star champion who maybe crosses over or has some similarities. If that 7-star champion is strong enough, we're getting to the point in this game where the 7-stars are just taking over at the end game. We're probably going to push you that way, that direction. But then if she comes out as a 7-star, she'll hop right back up, in my opinion. Some people think the AI and that sort of thing are going to slow her down considerably. Another one is Adam Warlock, a fantastic champion. And I think I'll say this right now. I believe Adam Warlock is actually on his way upward as people get more familiar with him, comfortable with him, out as a 7-star, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on in this video, is my projections, my thoughts on where they are in the meta and where they will probably be in the next 6 months, 12 months. And then next is Iron Man. Iron Man is very, very solid in the meta. This is not a rebound champion. This is a full buff, treated like a brand new champion. Really unique in the tech class because of the lack of energy damage, that sort of thing. Then, of course, can handle Bishop, but can then do so many other things. We'll talk about him a lot more when we do the tech rankings. Now, we're on Chilith here because she is tied for 9th, essentially, but is the number 10 champion. Bitter Steel put out just a mind-blowing video on her in Necropolis, soloing so many fights. She does have a little bit of a ramp, right? That's why I think we don't see her a ton in Battlegrounds. But the other reason I believe, and this is similar to other champions we've mentioned, is they've come out right in this kind of messy in between 6-7 meta dominant stage, right, where a lot of you're pushing the in-game envelope players, a lot of really competitive players. They're wanting to focus on their 7-stars as best they can, and your 6-stars have to be like super dominant and have a very clear defined role for them to max them out, take them to Sig 200. And so we see her on YouTube. I desperately want to pull her from a Titan Crystal or a 7-star Crystal when she finally moves out. I will rank her up. I do think her signature ability is relatively important. She has a massive heavy reach. I've actually just pulled her on my Vega Prime account, and I'm very excited about using her. I pulled her as a 5-star, so we're going to use her for a long time. Really, really good bleed damage, and then also the cleanses. So she, I think, is fulfilling a lot of roles, or kind of overlapping a little bit there with like Mole Man, Kingpin, these sorts of champions. She's fantastic. She's phenomenal. We'll talk about her even more when we do the skill rating. All of these champions are going to be in the top 10 for their class as well. Okay, tied with Chilith at number 9 spot is Shocker. You know, I absolutely love this champion. And when we're talking about where he's going in the meta, I don't think he's going anywhere. I do not think he is going absolutely anywhere. He's phenomenally well made, his loop. And so therefore, like, where you're wanting to take him is relatively well protected. In some ways, he's not like flawless, easiest champion to play in the world, but I've shown him with the high Sig, or I put my 7-star 6 stones into him, and it is beautiful what this man can do. Throw the Green Goblin relic on him, it can be helpful there too. Fantastic. I predict absolutely no movement down. I don't necessarily think up, right? We're seeing some kind of interesting happens in the game. We're seeing more and more defenders, or like champions who aren't necessarily what Kabam's calling like a 5 out of 5 defender, but like a 4 out of 5. We're literally seeing this with Arcade right now. And I believe he's like turning off True Sense and these sorts of things. Whenever I see that sort of thing, I'm like, okay. And you've heard me say this for years now. The relationship between these classes, it's not necessarily changing, but it is evolving. This champion is signifying something, kind of like Gallon signifying something. Not that it was changed forever, but that there's at least one champion, and where there's one, there might also be two. And Shocker, I think, is phenomenal. I think he's great. He's handling mutants and what we're seeing from mutants very, very well, right? He's good for Dust. He's good for Onslaught. So your newest defensive power mutants there, the new champions, not the buff Nightcrawler, he's very, very good for. And I'm sure actually if played a certain way, if you can parry, he can probably take Nightcrawler too. Might not be the fastest, could get a little frustrating, but I don't see him going anywhere. Coming in at number 8, and I think that shows how outrageously powerful 2023 was for champions. Like I said, every single one of these champions, we're going to see them in their top 10s and potentially even more when we get into the top 30 in the whole game overall. Werewolf is a phenomenal champion. Now, I don't have him as a 7-star, and he definitely fits that spot of the 6 stars, right? Like, I have a 6-star Juggernaut. I have not ranked him up because I'm hoping to pull the 7-star. I desperately want to pull the 7-star Werewolf. I ban him all the time in Battlegrounds. People have their 6-star Descended or their 7-star rank 2, their 7-star rank 3. I see all the massive damage coming off of the Rupture. I am aware of the bug with the double hit mediums. It is beyond frustrating. I hear conflicting reports that it has been fixed, that it hasn't been fixed. I actually don't know. And I do know this, that even with that, this champion is still phenomenal. Something to be aware of. I know Tiger players have worked around that before. And I'm not saying that it's not annoying. If it is still in the game, it is very, very annoying. And I feel that what I'm saying is that this champion is so good that even with that hindrance, still phenomenal. We talk about this all the time in this channel. If you have power gain, that's like one of the big things we look at because it can allow you to just get around so many threats in a fight. This champion is definitely not moving down. I don't even have a sideways arrow. I have an upward arrow. That's right, an upward arrow. But I actually do. Literally, I think this champion maybe not moving up in their class because their class is so incredibly strong. Mystic is in many ways, to me, starting to become the new top heavy class, despite being very, very good all around too. There's just some extremely powerful champions, and Werewolf is definitely one of them. Okay, tied with Werewolf, so tied for the 7-8 spot is none other than Silk. I do think that if you want to maximize her out, you do absolutely want her awakened, right? And especially like in Battlegrounds, handling, I think it was like Rintra and those sorts of things. But something interesting has happened is that Rintra is falling down out of the meta. Now, they're still powerful, still good. They catch me off guard sometimes, but we're not seeing him all the time there. And also, the game's a lot more than just Battlegrounds. She is a fantastic champion for war and general questing. The burst damage is huge, and it is massive. Then she also has that very unique evade mechanic to help get you out of trouble as well. She pairs very, very well with the striker off a relic. She almost was, I think we were told she was built with it in mind. So she's very well set for today's current game, helping you handle the big mystic defensive champions, and then also some of the more new recent defensive threats. I do not see her moving up because the class itself is so incredibly strong, and she's already one of the best science champions. She's also in absolutely no danger of moving down. In fact, she is part of why I think Spider-Punk has landed as... Spider-Punk hasn't landed poorly, but why I think people aren't more excited about Spider-Punk is because champions like Silk spoiled us with their massive, massive damage and how quickly they can do it. All right, coming in at the number 6 spot is none other than Kushala. I really think mainly she's as good as she is because I got to help with the early design process. I think no one could argue that I'm not 100% excellent when it comes to helping out in the design process. Okay, all jokes aside, I did get to be part of that. I always love mentioning it, as a lot of you know. I got to be part of it with my dear friend DLL, Daddy Longlegs, right? We've been friends for years. She's a fantastic champion. One of the things we talked about earlier was like, hey, let's get a champion people want to use in Battlegrounds. I enjoy Battlegrounds. Let's do that. There was some space in the Mystic class, and he definitely like nail on the head. Can she take everything? Absolutely not. She does have some not fail safes, but like protections, and she can put buffs on you if the defender's not having buffs. Obviously, she's much stronger if they do. She's different enough from America Chavez because that was something else. I was like, hey, can you also make it so that I would like to play her and America Chavez because I love America Chavez so much. And like the guy was like, yeah, no problem. Watch me do this. And we ended up with Kushala. She is absolutely not moving down in the meta or in her class. I don't think she's moving up because we already have her in the highest tier. She's in the tier above all. She's even, no joke, I have been using her often on defense. Like in the last couple of weeks, I have placed her on defense probably 6 times. And I don't know if I've won every single round. I may have lost once or twice, but that would be because I did poorly on the attack end. And that's just because, one, her moveset's a little bit new, right? And I think her specials are a little bit scary, so it's understandable. And 2, the way she interacts with Mystic Dispersion, getting that increase when the defender or the opponent just triggers a buff, it can really start to mess people up. But her, in general, right? She's an offensive champion. She is not quite a nuke, but she is very, very strong, can handle so many things, and then even has immunities herself too. She's fantastic. If you are if you're still confused or unsure why, I have a massive playlist on Kushala, how to use her, showcases, Battlegrounds, questing, long form, Necropolis solos, the whole thing. Plenty there for you. I love her. And like a dream come true for someone who plays video games to literally get to be a small, but still a part of the design process in Kushala, the number 6 best champion from 2023. All right, tied with Kushala, and actually, so I guess Kushala is actually tied for 5th, right? But Future Ant-Man's like, hey, this is about me, not her. He's an amazing champion. This is one of those champions that's not out as a 7-star, and yet you're not hearing me talk about him falling out of the meta. When we talk about the best champions to ascend, right, and I will update that video very, very soon, you've heard me talk about this almost from day one, is you want those champions, in my opinion, you want to be ascending those champions that aren't available as a 7-star, and if they did come out, you'd still be really happy because the SIG is really good or they're that strong, right? Where you're like, okay, cool, I'm happy I pulled them. because for the future, I now have them as a 7-star, but I have the 6-star and I have the 6-star Ascended, and they are so strong that I can now use those rank up resources on other 7-stars, right? And play that kind of long game. And he is definitely in there. He is, you've heard me often differentiate between broken and OP. I don't think he's broken, right? But for me, broken, that's like kind of bad for the game in a sense. OP is like as strong as it gets and still being healthy and good in the game. Very different and unique power control, right? Originally was compared a lot to Punisher 2099. I think we've all learned he is different than Punisher 29, despite I think it's the disintegration. Fantastic champion. I will admit that he still trips me up on how to play him sometimes. It's like some days I get him and some days I don't, but I can tell from Battlegrounds, from YouTube, from my Discord server, many of you have figured out how to play him and how to play him very, very well. I have actually had some success against Onslaught. Other people have had success against my Onslaught with him. And then on top of that, all the other champions he can take. And then he's actually, if Battlegrounds is something you're interested, he's actually a pretty tough defender, especially if they don't have America Chavez Kushala or, you know, the main future Ant-Man killer there in Hulkling. Absolutely not moving down, not moving up, in my opinion. And the only way he will start to move down is if we just start to see more and more 7-star rank 3s in competitive PvP format, or if the incentive to bring 7-stars in questing just gets so strong that bringing 6-stars in is almost actively to your detriment, and you start to look for other tech champions. So when those two things happen, if future Ant-Man is not as a 7-star, he probably will start to move down these rankings, and it'll be purely due to meta score because the kit is good and his abilities are very, very good. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the number 4 champion of 2023. Okay, this is actually a tie for third, but this is, you know, we're going over here, so we'll call her fourth, is none other than Photon. You've heard me many times call her the perfect Battlegrounds champion. She is a perfect dual threat, a good defender, a great defender, but she does have some relatively hard counters. You do need to have a good skill. You need to play it very, very well, but they can handle her very simply and very quickly. Outside of that, you're going to have to deal with some things. You're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to manage her, I can't think what they're called, but like her pure light charges and those sorts of things. And if you mess that up, she will wreck you. Then you can turn around and use her offensively. She has so much use, right? She is practical and built for the game we are playing. She will help you handle challenges. She doesn't cheese any of them. You're going to need to play her well. You're going to need to know what you're doing. You're going to need to know the dexes and the punishes and those sorts of things. But if you can handle all of that, she will reward you richly. In no way is she moving down. I don't think she's moving up, and that's because she's already in the tier above all in Science Champions. For all of Science Champions, we will definitely be seeing her more over the course of June. All right, DLL with, I think this is his third champion on the list. The guy is designing nothing but bangers. This is tied for number 3 with Photon, Absorbing Man, and Photon. And, you know, I could remove certain facts of what I just said, but some other facts would stay exactly the same if I bring them back a little bit. Is incredibly reliable, reward you if you play well, very, very fitting for the game that we're being played, like where you're playing right now. Like, they are practical, they have utility that will help you handle the asks that we're being asked for from nodes and defenders in the most difficult content and most difficult defenders all the way through. You've got Absorbing Man, right? All those immunities, that sort of thing. Now, this is going to go to something we've talked about, though. He's not out as a 7-star. And this is very similar to future Ant-Man. He's so good that he's been one of the champions. It's like, go back to my first video on the best champions to ascend. I've been very consistent in this, that he is one of them. And that is because he's not out as a 7-star. And if he were to come out, your 6-star rank 5 ascended would, I think, see you along for a very, very good amount of time. You could put those rank up resources into other champions, and then you'd be happy because you had the 7-star, you had them both. Eventually, there'll be enough 7-star rank 3s where he might struggle to keep up, or, like I said, the quests or nodes or something like that will just almost like be punishing you in a way for not taking in a 7-star. Then, and only then, will Absorbing Man start to fall out of the meta. But until that happens, he is very, very safe in his place in the tier above all in the Mystic class. The number 2 champion, and he is above Absorbing Man and Photon. And he's actually tied for number 1, to be honest, in our scoring system. But I do have him number 2. I have a tiebreaker going to number 1. Is none other than Onslaught. He was so strong when he came out. And there's so many, essentially even like nodes, right? For me, And he is not broken like Nimrod was broken. I want to make that clear. But I saw some similarities to Nimrod, and part of why I was so immediately able to say this is incredibly powerful is because he was not only handling skill defender, skill champion ass, but things that we see on nodes. And like that was one of the reasons why I was so quick on Nimrod was, look, he's dominating the mutant class because of prowess and healing, but we were seeing healing and prowess on nodes as well. And Onslaught, like with like the right back at it and ebb and flow and these sorts of things, he's just getting around those. And so I was a little worried. And I went out and I said, I'm like, this is the first champion where I feel like I need to remind the community that a champion may get nerfed. And a lot of you thought I meant defensively. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's a topic for another time. I've learned to fight him quite a bit better. I'm getting more comfortable with him. But his AI, it's really his AI and his animations. But as an attacker, he's not broken. He absolutely is not. I've used him enough, and I've actually messed up enough. A lot of you who fought me in Battlegrounds are like, yeah, you mess up with him a lot. And it's because, I'll tell you, is I think I just need a lot more reps with him. Because he turns off so many things that I then sometimes forget what he doesn't turn off. That being said, absolutely amazing champion. There's a reason why you've seen him in so much long form stuff on YouTube. And then you also see him on short form in matchups where he was designed to dominate. And that is if the defender is shrugging what he does. He can be very, very quick. Outside of that, he's a little bit longer. And then, of course, a phenomenal, phenomenal defender in this game. Really feels like an excellent evolution in the relationship between mutant and skill, which has had a lot going on lately. Think about that, right? We've got Negasonic, Teenage Warhead, Onslaught, Bullseye, and then they've still left room for your champions like Sunspot, Havoc, Bishop to be very, very strong. I really like how they're evolving the relationship between those classes in this game. Let's get to the number one. I think you know who it is. Number one, DLL again. The guy just designs phenomenal champions that are like, they make sense in our game. I'm struggling to think of a word, and I know there's a word, but they relate well in our game. They help us answer problems. They help us answer things that we're facing. And Kate Bishop does that so exceptionally well. I came out very early on and said, we have a new best skill champion. In fact, on Kate Day, it is Kate Day in my mind, May 5th of 2023. No, maybe it's June. I put on Twitter, guys, we need to vote for Kate over Shang-Chi. And I had been one of the biggest Shang-Chi fans out there. Because I had played her, I was dominating things with my special one, with the cold snap, the flow, the loop on her was very, very tight, really good. You did need to play well. You needed to know what you're doing. And you needed to keep the opponent in the corner. And you then also needed to know the evade, right? Because she's going to make them more aggressive and those sorts of things. But if you did all that correctly, you were very richly rewarded. The only way she starts to fall out is the same thing as I just said with Future Ant-Man and with Absorbing Man. It's if she doesn't come out as a 7-star. I do think her damage is good enough that even with 7-star rank 3s, you will see her hang in for at least a while. Cold Snap immunity, I'm sure it's not a surprise. Maybe it made sense lore-wise too, I don't know. But to see Serpent come in with the Cold Snap immunity and that sort of thing, I think that this is someone that they're going to need to be aware of. She is incredibly powerful as an attacker, shutting down evade, shutting down miss. It's a lot harder to get that up and get going, but she's got that potential. She's fantastic. We will talk about her more in the skill class, about really what makes her unique in that class. I do not see her moving down. She's definitely holding steady. She can't go any higher. And the only way she'll move down is the scenario that I just spelled out below. This is a blast. It's really fun to look back on this, right? Onslaught came out so late in the year last year that I don't even know if he was part of the vote when we did this and when the Discord server went over it. But a lot of the champions have stayed strong. Photon has definitely gone up a little bit. Kushala has definitely gone up quite a bit. And Werewolf too. That was some of those champions I think it took everyone a little while to catch on to. I know I didn't recognize the power of Werewolf for quite a while there myself, and Cheelith as well. If it wasn't for Bitter Steel, I would not have understood how good she is. That's where it is. Let me know what you think we got right. Let me know what you think we got wrong. And then I will put a playlist not only in the description, but on my channel as well. All the top 10, some will be a bit like top 15, top 30 when you do all the champions in the whole game for June. We're having a great time. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.